All right. Hey,
Hi.
welcome to the studio.
Yeah, face to face.
Yep.
I just enjoyed one of your house's many amenities, such as the literal cat nap, where you take a nap and you're physically surrounded by cats.
That's a good one. That's one of our better rated amenities.
It's a premier service. Well, it was only made better because these are my cats.
Yes. Cat hotel here.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get into it?
Let's do it.
We're going to do a 2-part biography here.
Yes.
So we're just doing part 1 today. And you said this is pretty highly requested.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people want to know what's up with this guy. They want to know the tea. And it's about time. Let's do it.
Yeah. Can you tell anything about the requests? Like, what do people say? Like,
Request-wise, it's more like they kind of assume we've already done it. Like, have I missed this episode, or did you already do this guy?
okay. Cool. Because sometimes you'll see it out there. Can you talk about how bad this person was? And I guess it's time to go ahead and drop the name if you didn't hear our preview, up next in our last episode.
Or read the title of the podcast you're listening to.
Yeah, we're all different levels of organization, I guess.
You just blindly hit play.
Next. Yeah. But, yeah, if you haven't read the title, we are going to be talking about Joseph Stalin today.
Okay, Mr. Joe.
Yes. The first part of the biography, today's topic, is going to cover all the way through his, rise to power, so to speak. Rise to leadership of the Soviet Union.
Cool. I will say a lot of our more negative reviews do mention this guy or some of the things he did. So it's probably good that we get into this.
Yeah, so if you are looking for more of what he does in power, that's going to be part 2 of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a lot of criticisms of his actions or his, some people, I think a little bit more, a little weaker criticisms are of his nature, because I think that's kind of silly to do. But, of his actions anyway, that's going to come in the second part.
Okay, so if we sound chill about him this part, it's just because we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and, even if you're looking for that juice, which we'll get to, we'll get into it, you can think of this as a prelude to that or a setting it up, know. The prequels sort of thing.
You see Anakin's decline into the dark side.
Yeah, if that's your bag, you'll get some of that too. Okay? But we always like to do a little early childhood stuff and coming of age situations. So let's go ahead and get into that with Stalin.
Baby Jojo, what was he like?
So he was born in 1878, December 18th.
Okay.
What does that make him?
Sagittarius, I think.
Sagittarius.
What's your wife?
What? I don't know. I don't know
Fuck.
I know my horoscope.
Selfish. Typical Aries.
I know yours because you say it repeatedly.
Okay, yeah, that's true. It's a Sagittarius, that's confirmed.
Okay, what does this mean for him?
Go-getter.
A go-get. Okay, I could, yeah.
Okay, but the next sentence is, yet they are neither aggressive or abrasive in their dealings with others. They have an open, generous nature and a sharp sense of humor.
I'm going to make an argument in the course of this that he does have that.
Okay, he's fucking funny.
Yeah, people frequently describe him as on a personal level, charming. Politically, we'll see he has very sharp elbows and he will, maneuver and get things done cleverly like that. But in an interpersonal level, all the way up until he's knifing you.
Yeah.
You kind of think, oh man.
He's on my side.
Yeah. He's got that he's got a rustic charm. And why does he have a rustic charm? Is because he was born way out in Georgia, not
ours.
Not American Georgia, but Georgia, the nowadays country, back then a part of the Russian Empire. This was in 1878. His name was Yosip Bessarionis de Zhugashvili.
That's a long name.
Yeah, you don't have to say all of it. Yosip Zhugashvili.
Okay.
And then the middle part is a patronymic. That's that was his father.
Okay,
son of
whoever.
Son of Bessarion Zhugashvili. His nickname was Besso. And Ekaterine Galadze, whose nickname was Kiki.
Kiki! Cute parent names.
Yeah. And he was born in Gori, which is in eastern Georgia. This was out in the sticks, so to
Okay, I was
speak.
gonna ask, yeah, if it's rustic, yeah, is their Georgia the equivalent of our Georgia?
In a way, yeah. Now, I'm not.
Like, it's
they didn't.
modern day Georgia.
They also
right?
had cities and stuff, and
Yeah.
just like our modern Georgia, but like, they had very rural areas. There were lots of peasants, so that's where he came from.
Okay.
And later on down the road, his whole life he speaks with a Georgian accent. He speaks Russian with a Georgian accent, and that's kind of a point for him. It's like.
Man of the people.
Yeah, but he's also sort of embarrassed by it. Like he
country
feels
boy.
himself to be rustic. Yeah, he's a little bit chip on his shoulder that way, but it gives him that kind of rustic charm with people too.
Yeah.
Kind of like he has that kind of earthy humor that he can use with them.
Okay, yeah. I've had people say they didn't know I was from Texas, like, initially.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but then I, like, get drunk with them or something, and they're like, oh, yeah, I know now.
It slips through a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Stalin grew up in a rough home life.
Okay.
His father's shoemaking business failed. His father was alcoholic and also abusive towards his family.
Fuck, okay.
Stalin and his mother escaped, renting rooms for a while before moving in with a family friend and an Orthodox priest who kind of helped get Stalin into school and everything.
Interesting. Doesn't this guy, like, not like religion for a bit?
Yeah, but he was a kid.
I guess, yeah. He didn't have a choice, but I'm saying, like, you would think that would positively associate religion with
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
His mom was very devoutly, religious. She worked as a housekeeper and a launderer for, not like a money launderer, like a regular launderer for people. And yeah, so that's kind of how he initially grew up. It was also rough because in 1884, he's, just a kid, he gets smallpox. And, he survives it, obviously, but he gets, like, scars on his face and stuff. Those have to be airbrushed out of photos and things in the future.
Oh.
The same year, 1884, his father fucked off to Tbilisi. The older term for it is like Tiflis or something. Tiflis.
Okay.
It's harder to pronounce, but I was just going with Tbilisi because that's the modern name for it.
Cool.
It's the modern-day capital of Georgia.
Okay.
Stalin's mom sent him to the church school in Gori because the priest was able to kind of get them admission to it by saying he was like the son of a deacon or whatever. And he was very smart. He was...
Luna thinks he is super smart. She's like, yeah, I love him. Luna's pro Stalin. Come here, baby.
Well, is this true?
She agrees. All right, listeners, if we have a cat meow, at least it's a very cute meow. It's very squeaky.
So, young Stalin, he was very smart. He was into poetry and singing. But he was also like a total class clown. He was kind of a troublemaker.
Charismatic.
Yeah, he was kind of a punk, which was fun, I guess, at the time. What wasn't fun is 1890, at 12 years old, he got hit by a carriage.
Whoa. Like a horse and carriage just ran into him?
Yeah, it's like a sports car carriage called a phaeton, which is just fancier.
Okay.
And blam.
Fast horse.
Yeah, hit him. He gets hospitalized in Tbilisi for months. His left arm is like permanently damaged from this. It ends up shorter and lacks like flexibility
Okay, like
for the rest of his
cane
life.
situation.
Yeah, it's sort of, yeah. I don't know. I guess
I don't know the
haven't
details
watched
of-
videos of that, but yeah. All right, so as soon as he was done healing with that, his dad, sort of, who was living in that city, right?
Yeah.
Kidnapped him, basically.
Okay.
Was just like, hey, now you're going to work with me as an apprentice cobbler in a factory that he was working at.
Okay.
Then his mom kind of sends the priests from the town to be like, to go get him back and bring him back to school. Because his dad was like, what are you doing in school? Like, you need to learn, like, how to work and stuff. So,
Yeah.
bad situation. A few years later, 1894, he goes to seminary.
Okay.
So Stalin goes to go train to be a priest.
Crazy.
Yeah. This was also in Tbilisi. It's on a partial scholarship because, he was a smart kiddo. Again, he was a good student at first. He was into poetry. He even wrote, apparently, some allegedly good poetry. It's in Georgian. I've never read it, but, like, It's supposed to be like good poetry, according to
say.
poetry people.
Okay.
It got published in the newspaper. It was kind of like patriotic. It's like Georgia, a very cool place, you know, that sort of thing.
Okay. I mean, for context, correct me if I'm wrong here, but wouldn't seminary school have been one of, I mean, especially given a situation, but like it's where you go if you're very smart, right? Like for a lot of people?
Yeah. It's one of the avenues out. Or upward, I guess, in society. It's around this time, though, that he also starts becoming really rebellious.
Oh, yeah. College years.
He starts to kind of flout school rules in general and, like, grow his hair long, and also starting to describe himself as an atheist.
Ooh, that you can't do that there.
Which is a hilarious place to do it. But I think that they're just like, oh, whatever, you're not an atheist, you're just being an asshole, you know?
I don't believe him.
He joins a forbidden book club called the Cheap Library.
Okay.
And it's in this book club that he reads a certain book called What Is to Be Done.
My guy, Lenin.
Well, it wasn't Lenin's version. This is the version that Lenin liked, that he named it after.
He wrote his own
Remember,
version.
this was the eat meat, work out, get buff?
Yeah.
That one.
Okay. He didn't read the fanfic. He just read the original.
The original, yeah. And it's from that book that he adopts a nickname, Koba.
Okay.
From its protagonist. I guess his name is Koba. Haven't read it. He also reads another banger book in the Cheap Library, Capital.
Damn, I love a banned book club.
Yes. And we see familiar roots here, right? So from there, he gets involved with the first Social Democratic Party in the Caucasus. And when we say Social Democratic, remember back then...
Those were the good guys.
Yeah, those were like communists, straight up. And now it sounds more moderate or whatever.
He was hanging out with Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, he was doing that. He was telling people, go vote. But no. This was called the Mesame Dasi. Okay. Which is in Georgian, the third group. So it's not the same because it's not like feminism. But you know how feminism is like second wave, third wave? That's what they mean in the third group. It's like the third big popular, you know, opposition sort of thing. You had like a liberal group before that and stuff. Okay. And so these are like their descendants. But they're social democratic, so they're cooler. He joins them. He's a natural leader, but he's kind of controversial because he's a Bolshevik. And so, you know, the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, they had those factions, the Bolshevik and the Menshevik.
Yes.
He got into the Bolshevik thing because he started getting really into the pamphlets of a guy who wrote under the pen name of K. Tulin. Okay. Which, if you peel back the pen name, was actually Lenin.
Aww, long distance besties.
Yeah, so he started reading some Lenin pamphlets, you know, and said, man, this guy, he's onto something. That's what's up. And so that's why he was a Bolshevik. Now, he was kind of like in the minority in Georgia. Most of the communists there were Mensheviks. Yeah. That kind of made him annoying a little bit in the group. He was like, if you've ever read Tulin, like, he's super cool. And everyone's like, boo, you know. But
it's not reform.
Yeah, but he was, like, really active in this. He starts attending secret workers' meetings and stuff like that. And it, again, makes him more rebellious. He's more of an overall, like, asshole towards the priests. Some of the stories of it are really, like, juvenile. Like, they would have their Bibles on the desks, but in their laps they would be reading Lenin and Markov and revolutionary texts. Or they'd be outside and, like, hanging out by this wood pile and reading, like, subversive literature. And then when the priest would come by, they'd just, like, toss it in the wood pile and hide it.
Oh, my God. I mean, like, that's the dorkiest form of rebellion. They're like, oh, you're reading?
Right, yeah. They don't have, like, nudie mags or anything. They have communist literature.
Yeah, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but still.
Yeah. He ends up quitting, leaving altogether in 1899. Not graduating. He later claims that he'd been expelled as a revolutionary, but really he just like left.
He just stopped. Okay.
They actually asked him to come back later, but he did not. Okay. He instead leaves and steals a bunch of their library books on the way out.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And so, yeah, that ends his would-be career as a priest.
Yeah, it wasn't really on its way to success.
It's kind of hard to be an atheist priest.
Yeah, that's not going to work. It'd be funny.
For a while, he works as a tutor and a meteorologist.
What?
Stalin the weatherman.
What the fuck?
Stalin the priest, Stalin the weatherman. He's a man of many hats.
What's next? He's going to be a baker? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, the biographies tell it that basically it was kind of an easy job that his friend was doing, and he was just like, yeah, man, come on. And it gives him plenty of time to do, like, reading and organizing and stuff, the stuff he actually likes to do.
He got himself a bullshit office job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a bad plan, listeners.
I mean, why am I doing this podcast? I don't know.
It's because I'm on summer break. 1900, turn of the century, he gets arrested.
What'd he do?
Well, it's weird. It's apparently his dad had gotten into debt over his taxes.
So they arrest him?
So they arrested him.
That's shitty.
They were like, well, what about your dad's taxes? But really, what the story seems to be is that was like them strong-arming him and saying, like, look how easy it was for us to pick you up off the street, you know? And kind of like, we know if you're up to bad things, because he had started getting into, like, organizing activities and stuff. So they were kind of threatening him. The whole reason behind that is he was running socialist theory classes. He had attracted kind of a group of radicals, like we said, starting kind of his own communist book club. And started organizing secret mass meetings at night for the workers of Tbilisi. This is where he was working. So on May Day 1900, he had 500 Tbilisi workers meet out there at night. And they heard Stalin. He actually like went out and gave a speech to them.
Ooh.
Called for a strike. Even though the Mesama Dasi, the socialist party he was in, was kind of opposed to that. They were like, that's going to be risky. But he was like, no, fuck it. We're going to do it.
You got 500 people out there. That's pretty good.
Yeah. They listened. They went on strike.
Fuck yes.
And it's at this point that he kind of, he's 22.
Jesus Christ.
And he makes his transition from, you know, weatherman, but part-time revolutionary to full-time.
Okay.
Revolutionary. Professional. The Tsar's secret police, the Okhrana, start rounding up known Marxists in Tbilisi because they're like, this strike shit's getting out of hand, you know? He barely escapes and has to live on the run from there on out. Like, he's enemy of the state.
Yeah. No one doesn't like that he's enemy of the state.
Why did they do that?
He seems so cool.
Well, they're Tsarists. Tsarists are bad, Luna. Okay.
Oh, she hates Tsars.
So when he starts out his professional revolutionary life, this is where I'm going to drop in. This is not a like personal life break. We'll have a couple of those, but this is going to be like a personal theme, because if we stopped for every one of these, that would be like, it would be a 2-hour show.
Okay.
So we have to kind of condense it all into one theme, which is to say, Stalin fucked.
Like he fucked a lot of ladies?
Yeah, he got around a lot. He hooked up with ladies like pretty much all the time, whether in everyday life, whether he was in hiding, whether he was in exile even.
Okay.
He was always doing that.
He said he's charming.
Sometimes the direct evidence is scant, so like they'll
people
speculate.
come out and be like, I totally fucked Stalin.
Yeah, or they'll write him later and say, I think that this kid is yours. Or the biographies will speculate based on, you know, a letter here or something and says, it seems like he did this. It's not really, you know.
He doesn't have a body count official.
Yeah, but there are enough probables out there and enough of them that are straight up provable that he definitely did a lot of that.
All right, he got some.
Yeah, and so it's not super important most of the time. I will add that this was repeatedly problematic, though. Sometimes he committed what we would in modern times consider like statutory rape because of the age difference. They were underage. In one instance, as young as 14.
Jesus Christ.
In Tsarist Russia, that was not criminal.
Yeah.
Our modern times would say that is bad.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what the discourse is in terms of like modern times versus old times, but I feel like it's generally still like bad, right?
I think so. Like, yeah, like you'll be like, oh yeah, that was gross. They did have like a child bride or whatever. Like, that's bad.
Yeah. So he did that. I think it's definitely a strike.
Yeah.
So that's in there. And, we'll mention occasions and stuff, but like not just, who was he sleeping with at that time, because it's just too much.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Professional revolutionary time. He planned a May Day demonstration in 1901.
Okay.
This one was even more effective than the previous one. 3,000 workers and leftists attended.
Jesus.
The downside was that they got attacked by Tsarist troops.
Okay, yeah. So 3,000 Tsarist troops attended too.
Yes. And, obviously the workers and the leftists provoked them. Duh.
They were being really bad.
And Stalin himself had to flee to evade arrests and get to safety, basically. And they, I believe, roughed people up or probably even killed people in that instance.
Yeah.
By that point, he gets elected to the Central Committee of the local branch, the Tbilisi branch of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. This is the future Communist Party of the Soviet Union.
Gotcha.
That's where they get their start.
He started out kind of as the outsider or like the weirdo fringe, and now he seems like he's getting really fucking popular. He's
getting popular, but that's like in Georgia and in the Bolshevik, within their faction. But yeah, he's the big guy in Georgia at that time. But he's weird because he's doing this Bolshevik thing. They're like, he's cool.
He gets results.
Strange because he does this Bolshevik shit, and we're all Mensheviks, but. 1901, he moves to Batumi, Georgia, where he, again, moved around constantly trying to get away from people, but he was also organizing workers, printing leaflets, doing the good communist shit.
Having sex?
Yes, definitely. In 1902, he worked at a refinery storehouse, part of his organizing stuff, and it caught fire. And the workers banded together to put it out.
Refinery is in oil refinery?
No, metals and shit, I think.
I mean, probably still not super safe for a fire. I bet there's chemicals and shit.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it could have been oil. I really didn't know. It just said refinery storehouse, so maybe. But I was picturing, metals and shit.
Yeah.
The workers put it out.
Yeah.
And Stalin convinced them, hey, we fucking put out this fire. Let's get a bonus for this. Let's demand that we get a bonus.
Hell yeah.
They did, and the bosses said, fuck that. We're not doing a bonus. And Stalin said, let's go on strike, guys. And they were like, yeah. So they went on strike.
Set it on fire again. Okay, so you wanted it on fire.
Never mind, yeah. And so they did a strike. The company caved and paid them a 30% increase.
Fuck yeah.
But then they turned around and said, costs have gone up so much that we're going to have to lay a lot of people off.
Oh my God.
And conveniently, it was, the union agitators.
Super
always.
Weird.
And so they did another strike in February. At this point, the cops come in and break up the strike and arrest the strike leaders. Stalin manages not to get arrested there, but he leads a demonstration at the prison to try to free the strike leaders. The Tsar sends in Cossack troops. So Tsarist loyalist troops. And they go in, they fire on people, they kill 13 protesters. It's called the Batumi Massacre.
Okay. Fun fact, when I was growing up learning piano, I had a very kicky little song called The Cossacks. It was super fun to play, I gotta say. Has a much darker connotation now, obviously.
Yeah. So that was Stalin's kind of organizing thing. He also went on to organize a demonstration on the day of the protesters' funeral, the ones who had been killed in the massacre. 7,000 people showed up to march. And the secret police, the Okhrana, really didn't like that. This guy's getting bigger and bigger crowds each time. So they went and arrested him in April.
Jesus. Yeah, because he did start with, I've been, thinking about the numbers. It was 100, and then it was, 3,000, and now it's, 7,000 you said? That's a lot.
So, yeah, he's becoming more and more of a problem. So they're like, we're just going to arrest this guy.
All right. File our count too high.
Yeah. And there is I did want to bring this up because it's out there, but from my reading, it is very discredited. Multiple sources say there is zero proof, and it just doesn't fit with the overall narrative. Is that there were accusations, especially later on, fueled by Trotsky and people who become his enemies, that Stalin was a secret agent for the Okruna, the
Tsar police?
The Tsar's police.
What?
Yeah, that he was secretly on their payroll or an informant or whatever. And their only reasoning basically is like, oh, but like he evades arrest sometimes.
He's good at that.
Yeah, I think the more plausible thing, given the evidence and like what he actually does, is that he just escaped.
Yeah.
Or, and he doesn't always succeed at escaping, as we'll see repeatedly. And the system is just kind of like bad at keeping people in jail or something.
And if he's popular enough, maybe he can use that rustic charm to get a hiding place,
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a trait in D&D is rustic hospitality.
Oh, yeah, if you're the folk hero, I think you get that.
That's it.
Yeah, or as Mal says, if you swim among the masses like a fish.
That should be they should update that trait.
So he gets arrested. He gets sent to prison.
Bummer.
And wouldn't you know it, he's less than a model inmate.
Oh, really? Is he trying to organize the prisoners?
Yeah, the guy who was flipping off the priests and everything and saying, fuck you, I don't believe in God. Obviously, he's doing basically the same in prison. He's a pain in the ass. He keeps in contact with his revolutionary friends on the outside.
For sure.
He leads a prison protest whenever they're going to bring in, like, some prominent Georgian priest to visit.
Oh, do they all moon him or something?
He's just like, no, well, I don't know if he even, like, if the priest even showed up. They just said he led a protest against it. That would be funny.
He goes in, they all just show their asses.
The priest just walks right back out. Nope. And they ended up putting him in solitary for that. He also, like you said, he gave lectures. He did revolutionary readings, gave revolutionary reading materials and shit to his fellow inmates, causing a ruckus. So eventually they were like, we don't want this guy in our prison anymore.
More trouble than he's worth.
Yeah, so in 1903, they sentenced him to 3 years of exile in eastern Siberia.
Oh, dear. Siberia is just... Didn't Lenin get sentenced to Siberia and then just hopped off the fucking train?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to see repeatedly the weakness of the system in this episode.
Don't exile people to Siberia if you really want them gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
They're either going to, 1, hop off the train on the way, or 2, all get together in Siberia and start shit there.
Yeah, or just, leave once they get there.
Yeah.
So this was in Novaya Uda in the Irkutsk province. It was a small town way out there, And so basically he liked to hang out and drink with fellow petty criminal exiles. There were also exile leftist intellectuals and shit. But he was like, man, those guys are nerdy. I want to hang out with the cool kids.
Okay, the workers.
Yeah. He makes a couple of attempts to escape. The first one's not successful. He gets frostbite and has to go back.
Lose any toes?
Doesn't say. I don't think it didn't mention it anyway.
Okay.
But it was bad, so he was like, I'll just go back and try again. And then the next time he succeeds, he goes back to Tbilisi. That's in 1904. That's a year. That's pretty quick to turn around your exile, but he will beat that record later.
Okay, great.
So, again, don't do exile as your punishment, I guess.
Yeah, for real. So easy, you can escape twice.
Yeah. On returning to Tbilisi, he got kind of into an intra-party argument.
Okay.
He supported setting up a separate Georgian Marxist organization, separate from the Russian one. But people were like, I don't know, man, that sounds kind of nationalistic. It was not very good to divide up. And he was like, but we're Georgia, we're cool.
We're special.
Yeah, so pretty much what happened is the party told him, you can't do that. You have to recant your views. We're internationalists. We're not, losers who want to do nationalism all over the place. So don't do that. If you want to stay in the party, you can't do that. And he's like, okay, I guess I lost. And he
just doesn't?
He just renounced it.
Okay, interesting. Bit of a nationalist streak.
During this time, he increasingly clashed with those Mensheviks that we talked about.
Yeah.
And he also worked on editing a Georgian Marxist newspaper called The Proletarian Struggle.
Nice. That's a good name.
Yeah. That gets us to 1905.
Okay.
Remember what happens in 1905?
I don't know. The Civil War.
No.
No, that's later. Just tell me. I don't know.
In January 1905, Bloody Sunday kicks off the Revolution of 1905.
Okay.
This was the one that Lenin called the Great Dress Rehearsal.
Rehearsal. Okay.
Yeah. It's people were pissed off at the Tsar because everything sucked. And so they do like strikes and mutinies and shit like that.
Cool.
This is the one that scares them into making the Duma.
The
parliament.
shitty Congress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so that kicks off in Georgia. You know, it's really stirred up too, and ethnic violence broke out. So thousands of people are killed in just these like kind of race war things going on.
What kind of ethnic groups are we talking about?
Well, you have different ethnic groups and people doing anti-Semitic stuff as well. I think there's ethnic minorities, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, or whatever they're called at the time, and ethnic Georgians, and people were just kind of all right there in places that like considered themselves very different from each other, but were living pretty close. So they tried to take the opportunity to just like do some bloodletting.
Fuck.
Stalin, when this happened, got together with his Bolshevik crew and formed something called the Bolshevik Battle Squad.
That's a good name.
It really is.
If I could name like a Super Smash Brothers team, that'd be a good one.
For real. He used that to try to keep the peace between these ethnic factions and trying to prevent pogroms from happening.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. The Mensheviks, for their credit, also did the same thing.
Okay.
They formed their own little militias, and both of these guys kind of worked together to disarm local police and soldiers, and also to raid Tsarist government arsenals.
Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome.
So yeah, they were doing some real direct action there.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave and Dan. I know like the whole coup thing, me saying it sounds awesome, a little concerning. This is a historical event.
Yeah, that sounds like in those particular historical circumstances, which as we know will never happen again.
Definitely not anything going on like that right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I would watch that movie.
Yes, definitely. So the Bolshevik Battle Squad also started basically running their own mafia-style protection rackets.
Okay.
On like big businesses and mine owners and stuff.
Okay,
They would
then
just be
it's
like, they'd just be like, shame to see something happen to this, right? And charging them protection money.
That's fucking funny.
They also stole printing equipment and raided the Cossack troops. And also this terrible group, this ultra-nationalist, monarchist, anti-Semitic. They weren't very well organized, so they're kind of like mobs sometimes, but they were called the Black Hundreds.
Okay.
And they were bad news.
They sound terrible. The descriptions just kept getting worse.
Yeah. So they go after them, and eventually Stalin set up a smaller group. So he had the battle squads, but he eventually sets up a smaller group called the Bolshevik Expropriators Club.
Is this the bank robbers?
Yeah, their popular name was just the Outfit.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a cool, like, Western posse.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, a punk band or something.
Ooh, yeah.
So they had around 10 members, 3 of whom were women.
Nice.
And they did bank robberies.
That's cool as fuck.
Bank robberies and also protection rackets for communism.
Yeah. And like, yeah, protection racket sounds bad. But if it's against rich people, then who fucking cares?
Yeah, like I would not be that sad if someone were like in a fan fiction maybe. They did like a protection racket against like Amazon or something.
Yeah, hypothetically.
Hypothetically, that would be
fiction.
Fun to watch that movie.
Again, I would watch the movie.
In November 1905, Stalin was selected by the Georgian Bolsheviks as one of their delegates to the big convention of the whole party.
Okay.
And this is where he met Lenin and met Lenin's wife.
He got to meet his number one hero.
Yeah, the guy who
exciting.
kind of his influence.
Yeah.
They got to talking or whatever, and he kind of disagreed with Lenin on some stuff. Electoralism. Lenin was not saying like vote blue no matter who, okay? But he wanted to compete in the Duma elections. He wanted to get people elected, but kind of just so they could give him the finger, so they could show up and be like, this is bullshit. Like, what if we just pass, what if we turn all power to the Soviets and just stuff they know just people aren't going to really vote for. Yeah.
Okay.
And agitate, but from the Duma. And Stalin was like, I don't know, man. Let's just not bother with it. They're not going to do anything for us.
I mean, it might be good just to show that you have enough numbers to get elected or something. But like, you could also just show them you have enough numbers by like being in the street. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see it both ways.
Yeah, it's funny. Don't get me wrong. You could start mooning people. I don't know why my mind is just like
just mooning.
Default prank is mooning people.
That has to be like a new variety of communism or anarcho-moonism.
Anarcho-moonism. I like it.
Oh, also at this convention, the party said, "Hey, so we've been getting reports that like some people are robbing banks." And giving the funds to the party, and we can't do that. We don't want to get in trouble for robbing banks.
Stalin like shifts his tie uncomfortably, like weird.
And the guy's
I haven't heard
like,
any of that in my town. No banks robbed here.
Yeah, so they tell him like, stop. And Stalin and Lenin, they're like, well, okay, I guess we can't do that anymore. But Lenin is like, hey, keep doing the bank robberies, man. It's good. Like,
fuck yeah.
Don't tell anyone. But like, keep doing it.
Fuck yes.
So he does. All right, personal life break.
All right.
In 1906, Stalin got married. He was married to Ekaterina Svanidze, whose nickname was Kato. She was the sister of Stalin's fellow revolutionary, Alyosha Svanidze.
Okay.
She was, by all accounts, his like true love.
Aww.
She was educated. She organized fundraisers for the party and helped tend to wounded revolutionaries. So she was kind of doing her own, revolutionary shit. She and Stalin had one son, Yakov, in 1907. And it's that same year that she died.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, they were married only 1 year. It was likely of typhus. There just aren't good records of that time.
Shit was crazy.
Yeah, but she fell like really ill and died November 22nd, 1907. Stalin's friends apparently took his revolver from him. He was so distraught. And he reportedly had to be pulled out of her grave at the funeral.
Oh my God.
So yeah, people say, Stalin, has no feelings whatsoever. Like, clearly he was a man. He was a person.
Not like completely like sociopath or whatever.
Yeah. He does seem, and maybe this is just bourgeois historians doing things, but the accounts try to emphasize that he was sort of hardened after her death in a way, like he was never as emotionally close to people or whatever. But I think he still did form emotional bonds with people, as we'll see. I mean, he continues to carry on with women later. There may be an element to that. Obviously he was probably permanently changed from that experience.
Yeah, I think anyone would be.
He left his son, Yakov, to be raised by Kato's parents for the next 14 years.
See ya.
So not the closest of father figures.
Not great.
All right, back to the bank robbing.
Fuck yeah.
Stalin organized a big bank robbery in 1907 in Tbilisi, robbing a carriage carrying money for the Imperial Bank.
Fuck yeah.
They stole, accounts differ, from around 250,000 to 340,000 rubles.
Okay.
Which accounts also differ in the conversions, and I couldn't do it, so I just took one of them and charted it out so that one of them would come to $4.6 million.
Fuck yes.
Today.
I'm also picturing a very fancy carriage and like fancy horses,
Yeah, there was that. Unfortunately for the horses, they were there.
Right.
Several of them were killed as well, including 40 people. And this was a huge attack, like in city streets. They went out there with guns and grenades.
Jesus.
And just, blew this thing up. I mean, it was very audacious. So, the cops go after them. One of their number, it wasn't Stalin, someone else in the crew, got arrested later, thanks to a rat. Someone working for the Okhrana, or an informant, tattled on him, and he got arrested. Which led to, like, a funny incident where Lenin had been kind of like hiding this guy and like trying to figure out what to do with the money that they had gotten away with, because a lot of it was a small portion of it was in small bills.
Yeah.
A lot of them were in like 500 ruble notes that were really hard and had like hard to exchange because they had serial numbers that they knew about.
Yeah.
And Lenin was trying to figure out ways to launder this, basically, when this guy he had been hiding got arrested. And so he's freaking out like, shit, I'm going to get arrested too. So he like sneaks across, he like walks 3 miles across a frozen lake at night to get over, to go to this place to like get a steamer and get out of there. But the ice starts to crack. He nearly drowns going across there.
Oh my God.
And apparently in, I think his wife's memoirs, she says he recounted the story and was like, I remember thinking, this would be a really stupid way to die.
That sucks. Frozen in a lake with like a bunch of like 300 ruble notes.
Yeah. But he made it, you know, obviously. Survived, escaped to Switzerland. But aside from that, the outfit continued to do robberies, protection rackets. They did some counterfeiting. They also did some kidnappings of like the children of rich people, basically.
That's not great.
Well, you know, they were doing ransoms or whatever.
I know, but still not great. We don't have to traumatize. The children didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's true. They would say, the ends justify the means.
I know, but I don't believe that.
All right. Strike.
That's a strike. I'm writing it down.
All right.
Kidnapping children. Strike one. I didn't think I'd be writing that particular phrase down. But that's where we are today. All right. Stalin strikes.
And, of course, they kept going up against the Black Hundreds would try to harass him, and they'd be like, fuck you guys. So they would do raids on those dudes.
That's fine.
By 1908, the cops had caught up to him, though. And Stalin was arrested.
Bummer.
You know, just for, like, his outfit activities. When they found him, boom.
Yeah.
They sentenced him to 2 years exile.
God damn it, guys.
This time it was in the village of Solvijegotsk in the Vologda province.
Okay. Maybe they're like, maybe this time it'll work.
So he arrived in February 1909, and he escaped in June 1909.
Sorry, what?
He arrived in exile February 1909. He escaped in June 1909.
Okay.
To escape, he disguised himself as a woman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Made his way to St. Petersburg and then back to Georgia.
I mean, we saw that pretty picture of him. He would make a fine lady.
Yeah, for sure. Google Hot Stalin.
Young Stalin.
Yeah, young Stalin. They'll probably both come up the same way.
I'm sure.
That did not last long, though. He gets back to Georgia, but he gets arrested in October 1909, but he gets out of it with a bribe. But then he's not so lucky in March 1910. He gets arrested, and this time he is exiled.
Oh my God, you got maybe this time it'll work.
Same village.
Oh my gosh.
He goes. He has some affairs. He escapes to St. Petersburg for a bit.
Oh my God.
That's in June 1911. Gets arrested again in September 1911. Gets sentenced to some more exile.
Are their prisons just completely full?
See, I don't know the benefits to. I mean, I guess, right? It has to be, because what else? Why keep sticking to this?
I don't know. I just don't. I'm glad I did, but like,
yeah,
I don't understand the logic.
It's
here.
cheaper, maybe.
It's probably way cheaper.
So, sentenced to some more exile again in Vologda. It's in January 1912 that Lenin and Grigory Zinoviev. To me, he's always the onion guy from Reds. I know he was a committed revolutionary and did actual things. That's who I always think of.
That's got to be a little offensive to his memory.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. I do way more than eat onions and lemons together.
But with the peel on. So it's January 1912 when Lenin and Zinoviev brought Stalin onto the Bolshevik Central Committee.
Okay.
So into leadership.
Yeah.
Even though he was in exile at the time. Lenin's like, this is my boy.
Yep.
He's cool. He'll help us.
Nice.
He then escaped to, surprise, escaped to St. Petersburg just after getting that gig. So February 1912, he's like, well, I got places to be.
I gotta go.
Starts working on editing the party's newspaper,
Great.
Pravda. But wouldn't you know it, May 1912, he gets arrested.
Cool.
What do you think they do to him?
They sent him to exile?
3 years exile in Siberia.
Oh my God.
He escapes in 2 months, goes back to St. Petersburg, plans some robberies, edits the paper. One interesting point, he calls for reconciliation between the factions, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. He talks to Lenin about it. Lenin's like, that is bullshit. the Mensheviks suck. We don't like them because they're Menshevik, because they believe the wrong things. And he basically talks Stalin to changing his position. So he backs down from that. And it's during this time that he writes a pamphlet. It's called Marxism and the National Question. It was about the role of nationalities within like the big, huge, diverse Russian Empire, like we were talking about before, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to think, okay, well, if this all becomes a socialist state, what do we do? You know? So that's what he wrote about. It was his first big hit. It's actually because of this, he wrote this under the pen name Stalin, which he'd been using that and like other aliases because he's always on the run.
Yeah, that's true.
That since this is his first big hit, he's like, well, this is like my party name now. Like, this is what people know me as.
Wow.
So that's why he sticks with it. Stalin in most translations comes out to Man of Steel.
That's a pretty cool fucking name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in February 1913...
Gets arrested and sent to exile?
Yes.
This is just a mild nuisance for him at this point. He's just like, I'm picturing him like in the middle making dinner like, again? All right, let me go get my bag.
Well, this time they upped their game a little bit. They sentenced him to exile, but in deepest Siberia, way up on the edge of the Arctic Circle.
Oh, fuck, okay.
Because I guess they looked, you know, they unraveled his rap sheet. I was like, whoa.
Wait a minute. This guy has never spent more than a year at any of these places.
Yeah, Vologda is not the place to send this dude. So, they send him way away. He does not escape till the revolution happens.
Fuck.
This is in 1913.
Okay.
He lives closely with the indigenous people there, including the Evenks, the Khanty, and the Ket.
Cool.
He goes hunting and fishing. He's kind of an informal doctor for the community.
Interesting.
Not all of it's good, though. This is where he had the relationship with the 14-year-old.
Yeah, not good.
Had 2 children with her, Jesus. One of whom survived.
Okay.
It's in October 1916 that things change because he gets conscripted into the army during World War I.
What?
They're desperate. They're falling apart, and so they're relying on prisoners, too.
Jesus. Okay, that cannot go well.
Well, yeah, he doesn't end up there, actually, because he goes through the medical screening, and they're like, what's up with your arm? So he gets rejected.
The arm. Okay.
Yeah, probably a lucky break.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in penal battalions and wars.
No.
You don't want to be in wars. Like, it sucks. You could die. But if you're in, like, the punitive battalions of prisoners and shit, they're just sending you in to get shot by things, like, more so than regular soldiers.
Yeah, you're human shields.
Yeah. So, probably a good thing he didn't go.
Yeah.
Yes, depending on who you ask. He served out the rest of his exile. Like, they sent him back. They were just like, well, fuck you. Until the February Revolution broke out.
There we go.
So remember, listeners, that's the provisional government. At that point, you know, it's chaos. So he goes back to Petrograd, St. Petersburg, but now Petrograd. Just hops a train, basically, and just goes back.
I want to check out what's going on.
Yeah. Nobody, stops him because
what the fuck? They got
there's a revolution.
Things going on.
So he starts working with the Bolsheviks again. He is like in the top leadership. He's already on the Central Committee. They do like a vote for the chairman. He comes in third behind Lenin and I think Kamenev. So he's like way up there.
Yeah.
It's in this time that he helps to organize the July Days Uprising.
Which was this one again?
So this was in 1917, after the February Revolution, obviously in July. It's kind of like a mass strike / armed uprising to show Bolshevik strength
against the provisional government.
Against the provisional government,
okay.
Yeah, and maybe to take power. Like they weren't really prepared to do that.
If it happens, it happens.
Yeah, and like most of them didn't think they really should. That the time was right. But there was a lot of popular demands to do just that.
Yeah.
But it fails. The provisional government cracks down, and Stalin's actually one of the ones who smuggles Lenin to safety to get him out of there.
Wow.
When that crackdown happens, so he gets him out. He's kind of still there in Russia, helping organize the Bolsheviks and figuring out what are we going to do. Lenin comes back and is like, we got to do a coup. We got to take power, and Stalin backs him 100%.
Yeah.
some Bolshevik leaders at the time, that's important, some Bolshevik leaders at the time were not on board with that. They were like, this is not the right time, we gotta wait. And Lenin and Stalin were like, no, we gotta do this.
Okay.
And I think Trotsky was on board with it too. You can chime in if I'm wrong on that. Let me know. He's there, Stalin is there with Lenin at the Smolny Institute on October 25th when they are directing the October Revolution.
Yeah.
So he's like in the thick of it, helping coordinate as they seize key points like the power station, the state bank, the telephones, the bridges, the post office. So, in the future, make sure to seize the post offices.
Very important.
I would watch that movie.
Yeah. In a fictional revolution.
Some later, Trotsky would be like, my man didn't do shit. But historians, even the ones who don't like him, say, nah, he was there. Yeah, he was right there coordinating things, making sure things ran smoothly. Behind the scenes, sure, he wasn't on a barricade, but he was really helping.
Was Trotsky on a barricade, though?
Trotsky was the leader of the Red Army.
That's what I'm saying.
And Stalin actually says, he said afterward, like, the October Revolution could not have happened without Trotsky.
Yeah.
Like, he was the man.
Yeah.
He gave credit where credit was due.
Trotsky, however, did not.
Yeah, we remember from that episode, he was very, very petty. I mean, we'll see. Stalin can definitely do the same. But he was at least honest about, in private and in his recollections later, that Trotsky had a big role to play.
Yeah.
So, October Revolution happens. The Bolsheviks, obviously, they take power.
Yep.
Hooray for them.
Fuck yeah.
They set up the Sovnarkom, which is, one of those like portmanteaus of things. Front parts of words. The Soviets liked that a lot.
They really do.
This was the Council of People's Commissars. It was kind of like the Central Committee, but like for the government.
Gotcha.
This is our temporary dictatorship of the proletariat. This is what we're doing. Lenin was the chairman. Stalin and Trotsky were his top guys. They had offices right next door. They were the only guys who could go into Lenin's study without an appointment. We'll just cover some of Stalin's early government highlights if you want.
Okay.
He was appointed People's Commissar for Nationalities. So remember he wrote that pamphlet on it.
Oh, yeah.
He was also Georgian. So he's he kind of wanted a non-Russian to do that.
Yeah.
But Lenin's like, he can help us get, the various places that are going to want to be free from us to stay on board, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Stalin signed, and it's not just him running it, but it's through his office and gets the Central Committee to sign the Decree on Nationality.
Okay.
Which granted ethnic and national minorities in Russia the right of secession and self-determination.
Wow.
So, communist secessionists.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of the ideas or the popular conception of Russia as the USSR being very iron grip on other territories, that does not line up with that.
Yeah, we're going to see that they shift on that position a little bit.
As most revolutionary ideals go, they end up getting rolled back. We see that with the abortion rights and gay rights and things like that.
Yeah, so that kind of shifts with different conditions and things. But initially what they were looking at is, we can't control all of these places. Germany occupies a lot of these places right now anyway, because we are in World War I still.
We're a little busy.
And they have fucked us so hard on that front that they're sitting in a lot of the lands that we claim to control. Why don't we just tell them they can be independent if they want?
You can be independent if you want, but also there's Germany right there, so maybe don't.
We can't do anything about it.
If you think you could do it, go for it.
So that was part of it. And another part, like I said, Lenin was saying, Stalin, you can talk to him, you can convince him, we're cool. Hopefully we do enough cool shit that they want to be with us. But we're going to let them, maybe do their own thing. And a lot of them did. A lot of them were like, fuck it, we'll be independent.
Well, I will say, I think it tracks, again, with this history of, even back in the day, writing a little nationalist poetry, being from Georgia, and then even his time spent with indigenous people. He clearly knows how to kind of ingratiate himself to a society and fit in and get them to like him. Yeah,
for sure. He's
got that charm.
At that time, he has a charm, and I think at that time he has a belief in that self-determination. So that's in 1917.
Okay.
He also backed up Lenin in terms of forming the government. So some people in the Bolsheviks were like, let's form alliances, coalitions, things like that. Lenin said, we are not going to form an alliance with more moderate parties like the Mensheviks. We're not going to form an alliance with the social revolutionaries, the SRs. We will form one with the left SRs because they're like close enough to us.
Yeah.
But we're not going to stretch ourselves too thin.
Great.
And Stalin was like, dude, yeah, good idea.
I'm into it.
He co-signed decrees to shut down counter-revolutionary newspapers.
Okay.
So maybe you could.
That's fine. I don't know. It's not my favorite thing to do.
Well, because who decides if it's counter-revolutionary?
Exactly. That's the problem. All right, I'll give it a strike.
You don't have to. I'm not pressuring you one way or the other.
Sure. Well, you know what? I'll put it down, and if I look at my strike list later and that one's like sticking out as like not even that intense, then maybe it doesn't happen.
It's like, wow, he did way worse shit than that later.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. He was the chairperson of the sessions that drafted the new constitution.
Nice.
For what you would call Soviet Russia at the time. So this is before the Soviet Union. It had the complicated name, Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic.
I forgot about that.
The Russian SFSR.
That's not catchy. It's so hard to say. If you imagine having a lisp and trying to say that, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
You
So
can't talk about that one in bed when your mouth guard is in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You have to be like, hold on.
Yeah. He also supported Lenin and the Central Committee's decision to form the Cheka secret police.
I don't like that one. That's definitely a strike.
The rationale behind that was that you had to have an organization that was capable of rooting out counter-revolutionaries, especially in the immediate run-up to what's going to become the Civil War.
I just arm the regular fucking people.
Okay, so more of a decentralized, more of an anarchist approach to it, or people's militia.
Because if it's centralized like that, then you could just go after your enemies. You can do some really shady shit. Not into it.
Yeah.
But if you just make it very widespread, like you spill everyone's shit to people. You just like are in the neighborhood and you're like, so-and-so's against the revolution. Everyone goes, what? And they go like beat that guy up.
Okay. So the government doesn't have any spies, though, to figure that stuff out. You just rely on people?
Well, do they, not even spies, it's like you have a liaison with each area that like, not necessarily spies, but like talk amongst the people, figures out like who's cool, who's not cool.
The Committees for the Defense of the Revolution in Cuba is what you're saying?
I think,
do that?
Yeah, I think
okay.
maybe do
so
that.
do CDRs instead. Okay.
It's a little less secret policey.
Got you. Yeah, no, it's true. It's more decentralized. I mean, it still goes to, the government, but like, I'll accept it as an alternative model.
In fiction.
In fiction, right? So he supported that. Lenin supported that. Not everybody. Some people were very hesitant. They were like, I don't know, maybe this will get dangerous. But both Lenin and Stalin were like, no, we got to do the Red Terror. And Trotsky too. They're like, we got to use terror. We got to make sure our enemies know we mean business. We got to kill people. Let's do it.
Okay.
He supported Lenin when it came to ending World War I, or getting out, not ending it, but like leaving.
Can we win this, please?
Yeah.
Great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
So he supports Lenin when it comes to arguing about the treaty and giving up all that land and everything. Some people were like, remember Trotsky was like, what if we like kind of keep fighting? And some people were like, what if we definitely keep fighting? And both Lenin and Stalin were like, no, dude, we promised we would not fight.
Yeah.
The provisional government, they promised they wouldn't fight, and then they fought, and look where they're at.
Yeah, they ain't here anymore.
So
we did kill those guys.
Yeah, so we need to hold to that, and so that's what they did.
I think that one's a good call.
Yeah. But a lot of people were upset by it. It was harder to see in the moment that it was a good call.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Personal life break.
Oh.
This is, I'll tell you the story of it. 1898, a mechanic from a peasant family named Sergei Eliluyev joined the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party in Georgia. He, a few years later, had a daughter, Nadezhda, in 1901. 2 years later, Sergei's fellow revolutionary, Stalin, apparently saved his daughter from drowning. I don't have any details as to how that happened or whatever. I just saw it in there. I was like, weird.
Weird.
Then they moved to St. Petersburg in 1907. And then it's in August 1917 that Stalin moved in with the family for a while in the course of his revolutionary activities. It's during that time that he grows close to Nadezhda, then 16, and then they got married without a ceremony 2 years later in February 1919.
Okay, let's see. I guess he waited that time, but geez.
Well, that wouldn't have been considered as crazy either,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
yes, it is. It is not, what we would, it's bad from our point of view.
Yeah.
Little, rooming or whatever. Yeah, he was 40 at the time, so
Woof.
big age gap.
Yeah, for sure.
But also a common thing back then, but also not something we like, so whatever.
Yeah.
She was, it's interesting to note, like a dedicated Bolshevik in her own right.
Great.
First, she was working as his secretary, where we said he was the People's Commissar for Nationalities. Like she was working as his secretary. But over the years, she held a variety of posts, kind of like fearing being in a shadow. Like she wanted to do things in her own right and not just be, oh, that's his wife.
Yeah, yeah.
She used her maiden name to kind of keep a lower profile and be taken seriously. She also studied at the Industrial Academy starting in 1929, studied synthetic fibers.
Whoa.
So she was like, getting more education and shit like that.
Cool.
They had 2 children together, Vasily in 1921 and Svetlana in 1926.
Okay. Whatever happened to first kid, Yakov?
Yakov died in a concentration camp.
Woof. Okay.
His father refused to make a deal to secure his release.
That's awkward.
It would also be awkward to go talk to the people and say, hey, I got my son out.
Yeah.
Your son is dead.
That's also awkward, yeah.
So that's his personal life break.
Okay.
They'll be married for the rest of this episode.
Okay. This episode. I love it.
All right, next up, the Civil War.
All right.
We anticipated it earlier.
I did. Badly.
Stalin served in the Red Army. In leadership. He took command in southern Russia.
Okay.
And he wasn't great.
Uh-oh.
IMO. That's my verdict. Everyone goes through an awkward phase, and to me, this is Stalin's kind of awkward phase. Well, just in his career, I don't know.
He has a midlife crisis.
Yeah, I don't think he was personally more awkward at that time. Like, he's got...
He just, doesn't know how to hold his gun. He keeps holding it upside down.
Yeah, he's lanky all of a sudden. I don't know. Some of his actions and shit may have been necessary in the circumstances, but some of them seem to be kind of unforced errors, unforced blunders sort of thing. Anyway, people make mistakes, so we'll take a look at what he does during the Civil War. It's not like he's... One thing that to make clear is he definitely... This is not an example of him being like, finally, my bloodlust, I get to kill. Nothing like that. I don't think that really ever shows through. We'll get later next episode about like paranoia and stuff like that. But people really do a number when they talk about Stalin and stuff.
Yeah,
and they're just like, wow, this guy,
The Hitler comparisons fucking come out to play.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about on the way over here, I was like, man, I wish Hitler didn't exist for a lot of reasons. That guy was very bad. But it also gives us an unfair, cartoonish depiction of evil that makes it really hard to talk about nuance and degrees of evil or degrees of bad actions even.
Yeah.
Just even the term evil is just very few people are outright evil.
Right, yeah, and I think it's always the communists, always the anarchists, the socialists, well, especially I think socialists and communists have to do the extra work of saying you can look at historical figures and you can say these are good actions, these are bad actions, this is just a person. For some reason it's always on us to say we're not trying to pick saints and sinners here.
Yeah. All right, military career, what do you do?
Military. So he's in charge of the southern Russia,
is that where Georgia
theater
is?
or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's kind of like north of Georgia because Georgia's
really
kind of separate from it. Yeah.
What's been fun is I've been picturing him with a American Georgian accent.
Yeah.
Because we did say it was rustic.
Yeah. No, it's essentially that.
Yeah.
He's rural. It's like a fellow communist rural leader was Mao. Remember, people made fun of Mao for his country accent.
Yeah.
So there you go. It runs in the
the traits.
Yeah. All right, so he was not always a great strategist, is one thing.
Okay.
Going into this, he relied on numerical superiority. So he would just be like, well, we got more dudes. Go attack.
I mean, that would be my first instinct, but also I'm not running an army.
Well, if you did that, you would take heavy losses.
Okay. Good to know. Just
Lenin.
in case I find myself running the Revolutionary Army. Don't do that, Christine. That's self.
Yeah, Lenin was not a fan of this, of course, because it was not smart, and he would get the casualty reports and be like, Stalin, what the fuck? He executed suspected counter-revolutionaries and defectors.
Okay.
He was not afraid to use terror or to torch villages or whatever to achieve his objectives.
I'm going to write that down as the next strike.
Well, he said we needed to get food for our armies,
Villages.
and if people were not willing to cooperate, boom. And then the next village that you come up on, all of a sudden they're more willing to cooperate.
Okay. It's still shitty.
All right. Stalin and Lenin, their argument would be, yes, I agree, it's shitty, but the blood is on my hands and not on yours.
Oh, thanks.
And we did it, and we got what we needed done, and you're welcome. Yeah. Now that I guess I'm trying to present it favorably, but I'm not saying like that's the good way to do things.
No, you're going to go burn a village right after this. I've seen the pile of torches in the corner of the room. I've been meaning to ask you about those.
I found some lovely villages, okay, and they would just look great in flames.
I'm really hungry. That's our dinner plan.
Dave and Dan, there are no villages, so chill.
It's fine.
Also, this was just also bad military discipline. Maybe he frequently disregarded orders.
Okay.
Yeah, Stalin, go do this. Maybe later.
Okay.
He kind of thought he knew better or whatever. So that would fuck things up sometimes. He was also very dramatic. Like, he would threaten to resign when he got criticized.
Okay. I relate to that, but yes.
Is that a Sagittarius thing to do or no?
Let's see. They said capricious, I think, was one of the things.
So maybe.
Hold on. I mean, you are a fire sign, which means you're fierce.
Okay.
Impetuous, great athletes, quite cheerful and jovial, and studious. Negative side, they're reckless, a bit radical.
A bit radical.
Just a little bit. And somewhat capricious.
Okay, all right. So maybe. He ends up getting awarded, though, the Order of the Red Banner for his service in the Civil War.
Cool.
Then takes us to the disastrous Polish-Soviet War, which is from 1919 to 1921. This one's confusing. I recall we talked about it in the Russian Revolution episode or the Lenin episode.
I think it was the Lenin one.
Okay.
This was a bloody one, right?
Well, yeah, it was bloody.
All the wars are, but...
What happened is, like, the Soviets wanted to take over Poland or, like, kind of help it become its own socialist republic or whatever. But Poland had been trying to expand westward into, like, the previous German-held territories and south into Ukraine. It's messy stuff all around. And it's probably just, like, wasn't a good idea to try to do this. But they tried. They were like, the people will join us. And then the people didn't join them. It was messy. Again, Stalin took part in this. He was, again, bad at following orders.
Jesus, Stalin.
And so this is controversial. Some people say that this problem was, like, way wider than Stalin and his kind of component didn't have anything to do with it. Some people say this did not happen. And then some people say, no. Stalin didn't follow orders, didn't go help in this key battle, the Battle of Warsaw. And so they lost. So I couldn't tell. It's whatever. They lost anyway. And they probably, they may have just, like, been worse off for winning. So I don't know. He probably still was bad at following orders overall.
I mean, the whole campaign seems like a bad idea right now. Like, you're kind of busy with, like, a civil war and shit. Maybe you don't go poking around in other countries right now.
Yeah, well, this was the reason this kicks off is because in 1919 they had finished the main thrust of the Civil War. So they felt like they had enough room to kind of do this now.
Okay.
But they didn't, and they lost.
You could have just spent time rebuilding those villages you burned down, but, it's fine.
So either way, regardless of what happened, Lenin and Trotsky chewed out Stalin for his performance there. And Stalin said, well, fuck it, I'm resigning from the military. But they were like, I mean, the war's over.
That's fine. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so they grant his demission from the military.
Okay.
He's done playing soldier.
Good. He didn't seem very good at it.
Yeah, not the best. Fierce, but capricious.
Very true. Typical SAG.
All right, so some more government stuff now. Stalin steadfastly sticks by Lenin indecisions. Remember, Lenin does the new economic policy, the NEP?
Yes. Is this the 5-year plan?
Not the 5-year plan.
Okay, I get those mixed up.
This is before that. The NEP was, remember, the one that was like, do a little bit of state capitalism sort of thing.
Okay.
Get things kick-started, build up productive forces. Trotsky and others that followed him were like, I don't know if that's great. And they also advocated abolishing trade unions.
Oh.
And Lenin, with Stalin's help, was like, no, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's stick to the NEP. Let's let there be trade unions, that sort of thing.
For sure, let there be trade unions.
Well, they eventually, changed that to where the trade unions don't really have much of a say. But at the time, that's what they were doing.
Okay.
I like to point that out. And these sorts of like intergovernment, inter-party sort of debates. Because it's not like these guys were all like, hey, it's my way or the highway. Did they take Trotsky out and shoot him? Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, later. And there's lots of people like this who, if they're an asshole enough about it, they get kicked out of the party or something. But they don't just get like run over or shot or whatever.
Yeah, there's been multiple instances of people convincing other people to get on their side.
Yeah.
So it was not the typical process we think of with government, but there was a process of debate and moving forward.
Yeah, a different form of democracy because it's not like two parties or multiple parties that are like competing with each other or something like that. It's within the party having these debates and then figuring out what are we going to do and then doing that.
Yep.
Democratic centralism. He was also made supervisor of the Agit-Prop department, the Agitation and Propaganda department.
Okay. What's the agitation part?
Like stirring shit up.
I mean, yeah, but in what context?
Well, probably in other countries by now.
Okay.
You don't want to do that as much when you're in charge.
That was confusing me. Okay, that makes more sense.
I guess unless you're Mao. Sometimes you do that in your own country if you're Mao. In 1922, Lenin nominated Stalin to be the general secretary of the Communist Party.
Wow. So not like in the government power, but in the party power.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And Stalin kind of takes that position and makes it into the most powerful position in the party.
Okay.
He'll have that title for life.
Wow.
Next up is something called the Georgian Affair, which you can really get into the weeds on, but we'll try to keep it simple. In the revolution, Georgia had broken away to form the Democratic Republic of Georgia under the Mensheviks, because remember they were the majority there?
Yeah.
So they were like, a socialist government. Soviet Russia obviously didn't like that very much because it wasn't Bolshevik. But leaders disagreed on what to do about it. Stalin wanted to use the Red Army, go in there and do a coup. Put the Bolsheviks in power. Trotsky wanted to encourage a revolution within Georgia. And then Lenin kind of like started out in the Trotsky position and kind of gradually moved to Stalin's point of view when the Civil War ends. He's like, okay, well now maybe we could do this.
Okay.
So February 1921, Stalin and his fellow Georgian Bolshevik, Grigol Ordzhonikidze, got Bolsheviks in Georgia to attack military outposts there.
Fuck.
All right. And when they did that, nearby Red Army units in Armenia came in, not by official Moscow orders or anything, but they just were like, boom, we're helping the rebels here. And the rebels there, the Bolsheviks that Stalin and this guy had agitated. That's the agit part.
That's the agit, yeah.
They had set up a revolutionary committee, a kind of a provisional government.
Yeah.
And so the Red Army that was stationed in Armenia comes in and they're like, hey, we're here to help. Make sure your revolutionary government's okay.
What the fuck? But you said it's not on official orders?
Not on official orders.
But they happen to be there?
But they happen to be there.
Okay. I was in the neighborhood. You look like you're starting a revolution. Could I help? That's Clippy. Red Clippy.
Red Clippy. I love it.
He has like a little flag hanging off of his like paper clip body.
He's got like a black like shade beret. Yeah.
That might be the episode art.
So at this point, basically they, I'm going to be a little less than charitable here and say kind of false flagged it.
Okay.
All right. And so they get to telegram Moscow and say, hey, Lenin,
we did it.
We started a revolution and we have a little bit of help, but please come help us not get crushed. And so now, the party's like shit, I guess they did a revolution. We should help them, you know? Whereas it's more like they actually provoked it, right? You know, they started it, but it gives them the pretense to go ahead and send in troops. There may be more charitable ways to read it. It seems like they just kind of
It sounds like,
picked a
oops,
fight.
I did what I wanted. Now can you come help me now that I'm already in it?
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me.
Okay.
That is like how they essentially took over Georgia for the Bolsheviks.
Okay.
But it wasn't like, bam, they're in power, now everybody's a Bolshevik. So the real affair starts in 1922. Georgian Bolsheviks want to be, overall, they're in power, but they want to be more independent from Moscow.
Yeah.
They want to do their own thing, is what it boils down to. A lot of complicated side issues, who cares? They want to kind of take a more moderate approach to Bolshevizing the place. So they kind of want to like be nicer to the Mensheviks and like convince people that like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. Let's do this.
That sounds good.
All right. Stalin and Ordzhonikidze, they wanted the opposite.
Yeah.
They said, that doesn't work. We need to do this immediately. We need to get rid of our opposition ruthlessly, quickly. Those Mensheviks, they need to stop or else.
Yeah. Extreme makeover.
Yes. There you go.
Georgian edition.
And they were also very opposed to this whole, like, you get to do it your way. Like, no. We don't want nationalism here. Okay. And this is kind of a flip.
Yeah, he was very into that before.
People don't have good explanations for it. The nicest one is, this is a different circumstance. And Stalin thinks that this is a better idea in this circumstance. Some people say that he, being a Georgian, felt that he had to be, more Russian than the Russians, so to speak.
Yeah.
And say, like, I'm definitely not nationalist in this case. I'm not going to side with my people or anything like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I feel like it's probably in between the two poles.
Yeah.
He probably, most people have a good reason for what they do in their head. So he probably wasn't just like purely self-serving. Their argument, Stalin and this guy, I'm just going to say this guy because his name, I have to stop every time. You're cutting out the gaps, but it's hard for me. They say, we're not going to have like a Georgian SFSR. All right. We're going to have one with Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan all combined to be the Trans-Caucasian SFSR.
That's what I'm going to be.
The
Trans-Caucasian.
Well, that means across the Caucasus from Russia.
Okay. It's like a satellite group, kind of.
Yeah, but they're all going to be combined. So their idea is that no ethnic minorities in any of these countries can be oppressed within that country because they'll all be together.
Interesting. I don't know if that's going to work. You can't just tape some countries together and call it a day.
Well, there was big disagreement in leadership about this, too. And there's conflicting reports, but in any case, Lenin is kind of, again, caught in between different people's positions, right? In this case, Trotsky and Stalin again.
Of course. I'm picturing a sitcom with the three of them, like Three's Company. And he's like, I just don't know who to choose.
Yeah. There's a lot of maneuvering going on during this time, and it seems like Stalin and his guys kind of end up succeeding in presenting the story to Lenin in a positive light.
Okay.
Like, hey, here's what we're doing. It's not so bad, to kind of get him to support their position. And they also succeed in kind of keeping Trotsky out of the loop sometimes.
Bummer.
Another factor here is Lenin's health. He has a stroke in May of 1922, his first stroke.
Okay.
His second one in October. The Central Committee at that point, when he's recovering, they limit his contact with other Soviet leaders. They limit his dictation time. They try to because, Lenin, he's going to be constantly trying to work. They're like, dude,
you're going to die if you do that.
Yeah, so they outvote him, basically, and say, no, you're going to rest.
Oh, my God.
So he couldn't be as involved. But during this time, Stalin was Lenin's main connection to government affairs. He was always visiting him, trying to keep him as up to date as he could within those restrictions.
Yeah.
So I would say they're best bros, but Lenin apparently talks shit about him, not even just in the Testament, but to his sister, to Lenin's sister. He said...
to Stalin's sister, it'd be funny. Your brother sucks.
But he said he's not intelligent.
Oh.
Just called him a dumbass.
This dumbass keeps coming to visit me. Wish he wouldn't.
Well, Lenin, prickly, could be elitist, that sort of thing.
That's true. He's a country boy. Maybe he doesn't like the country boy aspect.
Yeah. It's like, I got to talk to this hick. Ultimately, Lenin's last public input on the Georgian affair was to uphold Stalin's position. But after that, there's periods where he seems to kind of wiggle on it, but that doesn't get put out to anybody.
Okay.
All right, so the last Lenin weighs in, Stalin's line goes, and that's what happens. Stalin and his guys get to carry out that whole immediate policy. They get to lump them into the Transcaucasian, and that's what happens in Georgia. It's controversial. It's a big fight. What do you think? You think it's kind of mean?
I don't know if it's mean. I think it's gonna cause some problems, and I get the understanding behind it. I guess I just don't understand why you have to lump them together, and why you couldn't just say like just slightly more federated. I guess of like you can do your own thing, but like we can also share resources, or like we can like you'll have a representative in the party structure, or you'll have you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can
make
see
them
that.
a part of you, but not like we run this place, but like.
So you're saying some sort of safeguards, maybe, or national, like above that level, above the Georgian level, laws that would be like, well, you can't like do pogroms against people. Or something.
Yeah, maybe that's a good way to do it.
Okay, because that was one of their, I think, legitimate concerns was that if you have them in separate countries,
they're just gonna start killing people.
Yeah, they can each target the minorities within those countries, whereas if they're all lumped together, they can't so much. It's kind of like a parallel would be Yugoslavia. When Yugoslavia broke up and you had the Yugoslav wars after that, there was tons of ethnic cleansing going on.
That's true.
But they had been held together in that federation, and that didn't happen.
Damn, okay. Damn.
But that's not to say it would have worked, in their case or whatever. It's just that's what they went with.
Yeah.
And it was controversial too because, like, again, most people in Georgia weren't Bolsheviks. So
Yeah.
that was a hard transition. That's something Stalin was involved with. He was also involved with the establishment in December 1922 of the Soviet Union.
Okay.
So remember, they were Russia, SFSR. It's kind of a weird, we didn't get into it last time, I think.
No.
But it's a weird compromise.
Okay.
Lenin's idea was to have the Union of Soviet Republics of Europe and Asia.
Very long. Very ambitious, too. Like, yeah, we're going to go way the fuck over there.
That was the idea, was
Okay.
we're going to keep doing this thing. And the structure-wise, it was going to be more of an equal federation
I like that.
of Russia and the other Soviet states. Like, they were going to be just, like, all together.
That's what I like. That's what I want to do with the Azerbaijan people or whatever.
Okay. Stalin's idea was to keep the Russian SFSR, basically, and to have ethnic minorities have autonomous republics within that.
I'm having trouble seeing the difference between that.
Like a state.
Oh, okay,
sort
okay.
of. It's not like a province. It's like a more powerful version of a state.
Like a region, I guess.
Yeah.
Or like in like the UK, how they have.
Yeah, so I think it's maybe the difference between other countries, how they have provinces, but everything's still run through the central government.
Yeah, okay.
And then the U.S., where you have like this idea of state powers and stuff, them being able to do certain things, and the federal government can't tell them what to do.
All right.
Sort of like that.
So he wanted that second version of you can't tell me what to do. Okay.
Sort of.
Interesting.
Yeah. With limits, obviously.
limits.
But that was his idea. And so the balance was struck where you have the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, which had that kind of like, there's federation somewhat, because you did have some SSRs, Social Soviet Republics, and they were, the West called them satellite states, but they really, they did have their own like government set up. You also had within that though autonomous republics and different like levels of autonomy within that, oblasts and different things that were like provinces, where you were directly ruled versus like different ethnic groups did have those like autonomous regions or whatever.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was a blend of those two, and I didn't do a lot of reading into like, well, how did that turn out? So we can do that in a future episode of more of like, how did things really, the nitty gritty of how things ran? Because I know we did the myths episode.
Yeah.
But there's probably more.
Definitely more.
More that we could explore.
Yeah.
Next up, January 21st, 1924. R.I.P. to a great one. Lenin died.
No.
Very sad indeed. Stalin was in charge of his funeral. He was a pallbearer. Lenin's widow, Nadezhda Krupskaya did not like that he was a pallbearer because Stalin had been rude to her before.
Oh.
And she just hated him after that. But he was.
Okay.
He also immediately hit the lecture circuit. He went down to Sverdlov Communist University and gave 9 lectures on the foundations of Leninism.
Wow, okay.
Kind of to show everybody, yo,
I'm
Lenin
the guy.
and me, we're like this, you know. It kind of has a setback, though. May 1924, they go to the party congress, and they break out a little document called Lenin's Testament.
Oh, no, this is where he shits talks Stalin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they break that out. They don't read it to everyone, just like the top guys there, right?
Okay. They don't, like, put his whole ass on blast.
Yeah. And yes, it was really mean to Stalin, also to Trotsky and other people too. Like,
Okay.
Lenin could really talk shit. Stalin was super embarrassed and he offered to resign.
Oh.
But they were like, no, dude, no. Stay on board. Lenin literally just died. We can't get a new
cares?
leader in here and have chaos. Like, you know what you're doing. And we're all also working together on this. Like, this is we need everybody on board kind of time.
That's a pretty mature response.
Yeah, sort of, except for they immediately start, like, trying to
Factional.
figure out all the factions.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. We're all working together here, and then immediately go leave to start groups.
Yeah, I think they just thought it would have been unseemly to kick him out, like, while Lenin.
PR-wise.
Yeah, you know. So, Stalin, general secretary, starts consolidating power by putting people who agree with his way of doing things in influential positions.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Right.
So general secretary is like what? Big kahuna?
Kind of, yeah. It's initially starts out more of a record-keeping thing, but quickly, one of the
Oh, he's
thing-
in the party still, general secretary.
in the
of
party, yeah. But one of the powers of that he develops into the super powerful thing is putting people into certain positions. You know, and as you do that at the ground level, you end up with way more votes when you come down to that democratic centralism stuff. Because, and this is, you know, you can read it as very manipulative, how evil, or you can read it as just like common sense. Like, unless I'm a member of the American Democratic Party, I'm not going to appoint people who fundamentally disagree with me to
Yeah.
positions of power.
That makes sense, yes.
Unless I'm designed to try to lose.
Like
I'm not
Democrats.
yeah.
I'm going to hire a Republican in this. Well, good job, you
Yeah.
idiot.
Fucking dumbass. So Stalin, not a dumbass, doesn't do that. He promotes people who agree with him.
Yeah.
He tended to favor newer party members and people who are from worker or peasant backgrounds. He identifies with that more
sure.
than, like, you know, egghead intellectual types. And over time, this turns the party more and more in his favor.
Yeah.
Another big deal right after Lenin's death was all that political maneuvering that we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
These are shifting alliances. They are super complicated and tend to be petty, but we're going to try to just streamline through it.
So who was like in charge after Lenin? Was anybody in charge?
Not any one person.
Okay, it was all split up. Like everyone kept their current jobs and they just like took whatever his duties were and kind of divvied them up, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Because, I
Okay.
mean, and that's already how it had been.
'Cause he was
the
sick.
chair of the Central Committee or whatever. And
So the Central Committee just kept going, basically.
yeah.
Okay.
And just, divided up the work differently is a good way to think of it.
Okay.
So Stalin formed a troika, a trio, an alliance with him and Lev Kamenev and Grigory Zinoviev, who we mentioned before.
Onion Man.
Yeah. Against Trotsky and the left opposition.
Okay.
This we talked about in the Trotsky episode, but basically they saw the economic policy, the NEP, as too capitalistic. They wanted to do more socialism faster.
The left did?
The left did.
Okay, makes sense.
All right. So that's what Trotsky was trying to do.
Sounds good to
But
me.
Stalin and Kamenev and Zinoviev were like, no, like, we don't like Trotsky. They basically teamed up like this and used it to their alliance to sideline Trotsky in those immediate years.
They could just outvote him on everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Shitty.
Stalin also was pretty clever about this. He used Kamenev and Zinoviev kind of as shields. So, like, they were more extreme, more harsh toward Trotsky in public.
So you could be like, oh, that was them. I didn't say that shit.
Kind of, yeah. So they went out there and they were like, let's kick Trotsky the fuck out of the party. This guy's an asshole. And Stalin would be like, whoa, hold on. He's a good comrade. He's just wrong. We don't want to do what he wants to do, but let's not kick him out.
Oh, he gets to look like a reasonable man.
Yeah. He was seen in the party and in the press as the Golden Center Man.
Oh my God, that sucks.
Which it's hilarious though, like a rad centrist style.
Okay, but like, why did the Troika believe what they believed? Why didn't they want more socialism?
They thought that Trotsky, so their argument would be that Trotsky's demands were ultra-leftist, or like
what's wrong with that?
Well, that's a specific definition. They're saying that that he's getting ahead of the material conditions.
Okay.
So like the time is not right, but the conditions aren't right. Like we are not there yet. It's kind of why they had their argument is. It's kind of why they had to do the NEP in the first place. Mm-hmm. We were doing just like requisitioning and like no money and like just trying to do everything as socialistic as we could, but we didn't have the means.
Yeah.
So we have to build that up first, and we're not built up enough to do it yet.
Okay.
That was their argument.
Yeah.
Trotsky said, we will get to that point faster if we
just commit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man,
Right.
I think I'm more Trotskyist.
All right. Those are the two sides. And that may be annoying to some listeners, but I do like to try to present things as like how the person is arguing it.
I think that's important. Everyone thinks they're the hero. So
Yeah.
you got to try to empathize a little.
Stalin, he's playing the Golden Center Man role. Which sounds like a soccer position, maybe? Like,
Yeah, like
the Golden Center Man.
The golden goal.
So that's the first little alliance. But over time, in 1925 to 1926, Stalin gradually builds up a more conservative within communism. I mean, these are not like American Republicans or something. But he starts to ally himself more and more with Nikolai Bukharin, who was the leader of the right opposition, or like kind of the right faction, the right wing of the Communist Party.
What's their deal?
So they were super about the NEP. Right? They wanted to continue to do that. They wanted to lean into it, and kind of gradually, the idea was we would gradually develop socialism. Bukharin described it as developing socialism at a snail's pace.
Oh, that sucks.
And they were also about like building up socialism in one country.
Trotsky being much more internationalist.
Right. Trotsky was still saying, let's do world revolution.
Shit.
Meanwhile, Bukharin and the socialism in one country angle said, times have changed. If you look at all the failed revolutions of 1918 and everything, that's not happening. We got to build ourselves up. Like, kind of, what good does it do us to send a lot of resources to all these places if someone just comes, invades us, and stops us from doing that?
Okay.
All right, so we have to build ourselves up to defend ourselves, and then we can do world revolution stuff. That was their argument for it.
Okay.
Bukharin is actually the one who comes up with that socialism in one country thing. Stalin gets known for it later, even though Stalin had been kind of a world revolution guy in his earlier days.
Yeah, with Georgia and stuff, and yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So he starts doing that alliance and basically gradually gets too right-wing for Zinoviev and Kamenev.
Okay.
And they're like, this fucking sucks. Like, maybe Trotsky was right, we should do more of that shit. So they join him in kind of a left-wing united opposition, is what it's called, against Stalin.
Friends ditched him. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or they would say, Stalin ditched us.
Yeah.
So it's Stalin and Bukharin versus Zinoviev, Kamenev, and Trotsky.
Of course, Karen's the conservative one.
Yes.
Bukharin.
All right. By December 1927, Stalin's alliance, him and Bukharin, were able to kick Trotsky, Zinoviev, and Kamenev out of the party. They said, they're doing factionalism. They're trying to split us apart.
You guys are also doing factionalism.
They also had their own faction. That's true. But they said it's their fault.
Okay.
So they kicked them out of the party.
Okay.
Zinoviev and Kamenev caved, and they're like, oh, no, sorry, please, let us back in.
Oh, fuck.
They admit they were wrong, and they're readmitted 6 months later.
These are fucking fake-ass friends. Do not trust Zinoviev and Kamenev with anything. They're gonna fucking betray you.
They were forever kept out of leadership at that point. They had mid-level roles. But Trotsky said, fuck it. No, I was right. And gets exiled.
Hey, we know it's not a big deal. You can just come back in a year.
Right? Yeah, except all the way out of the country. So that left just Stalin and Bukharin. But they gradually drifted apart too. People differ on how they like to explain this. You're more cynical, more anti-communist types will say Stalin was paranoid that Buchanan was a threat to his power, which is probably an element to that, to be honest.
Probably.
I mean, he's a shrewd politician. He gets it. But the, like, why would you do this for a real reason of policy? Explanation is that Buchanan was solidly, like, pro-NEP, right? Like, he wanted to keep doing that. And he kind of, as he espoused that view, he would say things like, you know, the kulaks, the people erroneously call these guys small peasants, but a peasant means like
You don't own anything.
that you own land that you work, right?
Yeah.
You can't be a small peasant if you're hiring someone else to work your land. Like, how are you a peasant? And that's what these guys were. Like,
It's like small business owners here.
right. Like, they're not running a humongous plantation, but they have enough land and have enough resources to where they're hiring people to work it. That's a kulak. So I would characterize them more as like a small rural landowner or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, little, you know, aside, whenever you see like, oh, they seem very nice, why would you go after them? It's like, they're not that nice. Anyway, he would encourage those guys to enrich themselves. Like, that was the whole way this was going to work, is like everyone's trying to get rich and everything. And it's very capitalistic.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And he kind of increasingly,
This
you
is
know,
Karen?
drifted. Yeah, that's
Okay.
Buchanan. Stalin, meanwhile, in the face of a grain shortage in 1928, was, you know, pretty bummed out about how the NEP had done, right? And he's like, we're really behind. We need to industrialize. We need to catch up fast to the other capitalist countries.
Yeah.
So he said, we got to do rapid industrialization, forced collectivization, 5-year plans. Does this sound familiar
Yeah.
to what?
To what Mao did?
Well, to what Trotsky and them were saying.
Oh, fuck. That is what they were saying. Fuck. Okay. You should call him back and be like, hey, I'm sorry. You're totally right. Karen's
Yeah.
stupid. Please come back.
So basically, he changed his position to
Oh my
go
gosh.
exactly to what the left opposition had been saying.
That's very annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
His-
glad. It's a better position, in my opinion. But, like, annoying that you had to kick people out. You couldn't just, like, fucking sit down and figure this shit out on your own.
well, his supporters would have said Trotsky and the like were wrong to support that decision in those conditions then.
A year ago?
Yeah, they would have said that, you know, the conditions are different in some way, and
my
then
gosh.
now it's correct to do it this way.
Those are such broad ideas that I don't think, you know, I think that would still hold up.
Okay, yeah, that would be your criticism of it.
It would be. It's like that's a very general approach. Like, do we want to go a little more capitalist, or we want to go a little more like industrial and centralized? Like, duh, there's obviously one right answer there.
See, I think it does depend on conditions, though. Like, I think the NEP may have been a good idea when it first started. And then at some point, so this is just a question of where you draw the line. At some point, to me, it seems like you got to figure out, okay, we have enough to work with. We can start going real fast with it. Right?
Yeah.
And so the argument then would be Trotsky or Stalin or somebody got it wrong in terms of like where to draw the line. But you're saying more, you lean toward, you don't have to draw that line anywhere. You don't have to do the NEP. You can just like, bam, hit it.
I think so.
Okay.
I think I have very little trust in things that are like, oh, we'll do it later. Because, like, when does that ever happen?
Yeah.
You know, like, I want there to be some sort of, like, not checks and balance, but some sort of, like, follow-up. Like, all right, it's been 5 years. Did we do it? Like,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Of
This-
like, if you don't start, you know, actually doing more socialism by this time, like, we're going to do another fucking revolution.
This to me ties into maybe why you have more of an anarchist streak.
I don't trust them.
But, yeah.
Because they could just be like, this is pretty cush for me.
The worker state, right? It's like, well, when does that go away? Like, you know, what if we just jump straight to it?
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. And then I'm too trusting of the process.
Far too trusting.
Interesting. All right. So Stalin has switched positions.
Ugh. Fake
And-
friend, too. Also a fake friend.
Well, he's developed up this huge alliance and everything with Buchanan, but he's always held the cards, right? So,
Okay.
like, initially, Buchanan kind of had more held up like half or a good chunk of the alliance. But remember what Stalin's been doing the whole time.
Accumulating
Changing
power.
changing the structure of the party to more fit his type of guys. So, by the time it comes to a vote with him and Buchanan, the Politburo sides with Stalin, labels Buchanan a right deviationist, and ejects him from the Politburo. They don't kick him out of the party altogether, just the leadership.
Okay.
And he kind of sticks around. He's not even, exiled or anything. He's still in the party, but loses his stature along with his fellow rightist Alexei Rykov. That's in December. And Stalin is able to convince the Politburo to install Vyacheslav Molotov in their place. So he's like a loyalist, essentially. He's the one who later on, his wife gets arrested. Remember in Death of Stalin?
Yeah.
And Michael Palin plays him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's Molotov.
Okay.
By that point, that's in 1929. By 1930, the Politburo is increasingly dominated by Stalin's allies. Mm-hmm. So this is when he's you could say, sort of unchallenged.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say he's a dictator per se, because it's not like there's a governmental structure
that says this guy is in charge.
Right, yeah. But he is definitely 100% in the driver's seat at that point. Mm-hmm. There's still room for people to disagree somewhat or hash it out within the party at this point. But as we'll see, next time, he's going to kind of go off the rails in terms of dealing with some of the challenges. And we'll take a look and see to what extent could someone justify some of them, which ones were unjustifiable altogether. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of degrees there, basically.
Okay.
And some of them are just nope.
No, that's a bad one.
Yeah. And then some of them are if you believe that explanation, maybe, then okay. If that wasn't happening, then what you did was terrible. There's all these sorts of kind of nuanced positions. But I think that's where we'll leave off for today.
Okay.
It's kind of now he's
in the driver's seat.
He's in the driver's seat. He's ready to go. He's risen to quote unquote power.
So why didn't Trotsky also appoint people to get himself some more power?
He wasn't general secretary.
Okay. So he just couldn't.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So general secretary got to kind of intake members and place people and stuff like that.
Yeah. See, that's a little shady. I don't mind. I think it makes sense to want to surround yourself with people that you like. I can't super fault him for that, but I think the lack of democratic process within that is kind of shitty.
Okay.
I think it should have been more oh, you want to join the party? Cool. Let's all take a look, or have a committee maybe, because we don't have time to ask everybody to come sit on this meeting.
Yeah.
But you can have a committee from a wide variety of both hierarchy and places and whatever. Mm-hmm. And they look at this person and be all right, were you involved in any shady shit? And were you on the counter-revolutionary side? Did you do some bad stuff? No? Okay, cool, you're in. That kind of thing. I feel it should just be more of an open and localized process. Like
a panel interview sort of thing?
Maybe not panel. I mean, I would rather have it all be fully democratic, but if you're going to have this big party organism that's probably hard to run, mm-hmm. then I could see doing that.
Okay.
But it shouldn't just be one guy.
Well, their argument, I think their justification would be, mm-hmm. we did that, but we took it, that's one step removed. So we did have the meeting and we decided who's going to be the guy to do this, mm-hmm. so that we don't have to have the multiple meetings every time they bring a member in.
Yeah.
And then if we don't like what he's doing, we're going to be hey, you filled this all up with assholes. Mm-hmm. You're no longer the general secretary. We're going to do someone else.
Mm-hmm. But if he filled it up with all assholes, nobody's going to do that because they're all assholes together.
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
They're going to kick themselves out man, we are a bunch of assholes. We should leave.
You got us. That's true. So maybe that's a weakness of arranging it that way.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. It seems you have too much power centralized on one guy.
So instead of general secretary, you'd have an X number of little, a committee. A committee
that can approve people to join. I mean, I'd rather just have it completely localized of all right, like Cuba's kind of localized.
Do we think this guy's all right? Yeah.
To national election.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a better system. And I know Russia's very big, and that obviously has its challenges, but
true.
To me, that seems more fair.
Okay. Maybe could have worked.
All right. Do you want to hear my strike list so far?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Kidnapping children. That's got to be first on the list.
Not a great look, but at least they were rich children.
The kids thought they didn't fucking do anything. It's not like these kids are down with the workers.
That's true.
Long live the Tsar.
That's true. I'm just trying to point out.
I know.
A couple of counterpoints, but yeah, I don't advocate that as a particularly fruitful leftist tactic.
It's not a good one. Marrying teens, also not cool.
Not good.
Again, we've
Not
talked
good.
about the context of that is obviously very different.
But yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Shut down counter-revolutionary newspapers. That's lower on the list for me. Like, it sucks, but, like, also those newspapers suck, so, like, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, to me, that's one of the things of, like you were saying, when could we do full-on socialism and stuff versus, like, gradualism? Mm-hmm. To me, it's also a matter of context. If I'm in the middle of a civil war where I'm fighting for my existence and people are trying to re-enslave the people back into czardom and everything, maybe I'll shut down a newspaper or two. You ask me whenever I've got a fully developed society and, you know, we've kind of lessened those class antagonisms to you know, kind of dull the edges on that, and we're not fighting for our existence, then why not? Why not have a little more expression?
Okay. I guess similar vein of forming a secret police, not my favorite activity.
Yeah.
Again, would rather have that much more localized. Burning villages. That one's got to be up there with kidnapping children.
You don't like burning villages?
Don't do that one.
What if we get everyone out first?
It's still are homeless.
It's not very nice. You're right.
You should have been able to convince the village. You gotta spec and charisma, and convince the villagers to help you, because, like, in the long run, this will be very helpful. And then the last one is a fake friend, kicked out Trotsky, and then just like, actually, I agree with Trotsky. That's really shitty.
Yeah, there's you know, the nicest way you can put that is he thought he was right and his course had to be followed, and Trotsky was a danger to that. The meaner interpretation is that Trotsky was a rival for power. Probably somewhere in between that.
They both could have factored in.
They both could have factored in, and they're both kind of interrelated too. Like, I need to struggle for power so that I can do the things that I want to do because they're right. You know,
Yeah.
It's all people think in these kind of muddied ways. So,
Well, that's the list so far.
well, we're not playing baseball, so.
Yeah, it's not baseball, but that's a lot for episode 1, I gotta say.
And now he's in power.
He's
gets
gonna
to
do
a lot
some
more.
worse shit is the thing. Like, I already know it. We haven't even hit, like, World War II yet. We haven't hit any of the spicy shit yet.
Yeah, so strap in for that when it comes around, I guess.
Yeah, and don't be like, you guys didn't talk about any of the bad shit. We're getting to it. That's next episode.
Yep, there will be lots of it.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, that's next week, so tune in for that.
All right, catch you later.
All right, bye. I'm gonna make you a dinner.
Thank you.
Hey there, comrades. Just jumping in to remind you of all of our social media. We are on Twitter at teachcommunism, Instagram at teachmecommunism. You can shoot us an email. That's teachmecommunism@gmail.com. Any of those places are good to send us an episode suggestion or a question, anything you think would be useful feedback for us, or just your admiration. If you want to admire us in a public manner, and you should, you can go to Apple Podcasts to give us a review. It is the best way to help people find the show. Love when people rate and review us. Please do both. We are also on YouTube, if that's how you prefer to listen to podcasts, or if you know someone that's the only way they'll listen to podcasts, send them to our page. And we have a Patreon. For $5 a month, you get access to our notes for each week's episode, including the backlog of notes, which is a very handy resource for up-and-coming commies. And at the end of the year, all of the funds from Patreon will be given to local mutual aid in the DFW area. So, ain't going to line our pockets. Finally, we have merch. Check us out at TeePublic. You can find shirts and I believe also stickers and magnets and all kinds of fun stuff with catchphrases from the show or episode art, stuff like that. The link to that store is in the show notes, so check that out. Okay, that's all the internet. Join us next time for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session. Bye, y'all.